summer is winding down and we've got a massive card sale that's happening. The largest $10 million plus card ever, the 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle and an SGC 9.5. We're going to talk about this and also just a broader topic that comes out of this, I think, and it's buying the card and not the slab. Stick around. Hello to all my sports card collectors, investors, all of my collectibles friends. It is another day, another card video. We are back again. If you're new here or, you've been here for a little bit and you're not sure you want to join in, guys, what are you waiting for? Hit the big red button down below, the subscribe button. We're going to talk about all the cards, collectible stuff that maybe the rest of the team, the family, the friends just don't care about, don't want to talk about. We are here for you. Also, don't forget to connect with me on IG at SportsCardDad. I do funny reels. Not really that funny, but I think they're funny. I'm trying to kind of build out the IG stuff more, and I'm having fun learning more about it. I'm also on the Twitter machine, the Sports Card Dad. Big thanks to channel partner Card Shop Live. Got giveaways, guys. 2 people can win $50 to spend on the Card Shop Live app. All the instructions are in the video description, and then I'll also pin a comment how to get on the app and all of that stuff. Definitely check out Card Shop Live. All right, this is the first 8-figure card. We are at $12.6 million. We're in extended bidding for the 52 Topps Mickey Mantle and an SGC 9.5. It's still going on. This is the first time we've had a $10 million plus card, and it's deserving, I think. Really, if we're talking about the hobby as a whole, and looking back at some of the other big cards, not to take away from those, but this is really kind of the big one. This is the biggie. This is the grail. This is the 52 Topps Mickey Mantle, and I've heard a lot of talk recently with this particular auction going on, and I wanted to address it kind of directly. There's a lot of talk of, man, look at the price of this SGC 9.5. Just think about what the PSA 10s would go for. And I think that this kind of speaks to a broader, I don't necessarily want to call it a problem, but it's just kind of hobby thinking that doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense to me. But I do understand that everyone's entitled to their own opinion, etc. I am by no means a vintage card expert at all, not a vintage baseball card expert, but I listen to a lot of guys and gals that have been in the hobby for a long time that do know vintage very, very well. And I've heard kind of a consensus among some, not all, but basically saying that, look, this SGC 9.5 out of the 4 copies, if we're looking at the 310s and the SGC 9.5, they believe that the SGC 9.5 is the best looking copy out of the 4. And I think that this is important. And the reason why is because there's just so much emphasis on PSA 10, mostly when we're talking about ultra modern. But even if you're going back to, 80s cards and you're going back with vintage, of course, you have a lot of vintage cards that have never received a PSA 10. So, the Jim Brown rookie card is one, for example. And so you have a lot of the hobby that's just buying a slab without really taking the time to look at the card. And I do understand third-party grading. It does help us a lot to try to gauge, try to compare. That's really what this is we're trying to make comparisons on price points. And there's a lot of emphasis on comps. We're comping this and comping that. The problem, though, and especially when we're talking about vintage cards, is the comps are all over the place because eye appeal is so drastically different. And the beauty is in the eye of the beholder when it comes to really cards in general, but especially vintage cards. And it really depends on what you prioritize. For me personally, when I'm looking at a vintage card, I care mostly about centering and surface. I want it to be centered. Ideally, there are a lot of off-centered vintage cards. There just are, in my opinion. And then also coloring. When you really look at a lot of vintage cards, the surface of them really, it stands out. I like to see colors that pop. I was at the National looking at Bart Starr rookie cards. I was trying to get one, and man, you could really see a drastic difference between the surface on those cards. I want to see the orange pop on that card. There's really a cool orange and blue, like a light blue on that card. And it was tough to make a decision because on some you would have like bright orange, really dull light blue, really nice light blue, dull orange. And it's like, man, I can't make it. And then the centering, you have to factor that in. Then you're looking at corners, you're looking at edges. I've also talked to other people that are the exact opposite. They're like, hey, I'm more interested in corners and edges. That's what I really focus on. I want it to be a nicely, I want those borders looking really nice. Fair. And so going back to this Mantle card, I know with the grading wars, everybody's got their own grading company that they really like. I buy all four of the major companies, really. I am partnered with SGC, so I am biased in that regard. But I would have the same opinion if this SGC copy that's selling at 12.6 was sitting in a CSG case or a BGS case. If the hobby looked at that card and really kind of the experts, those vintage folks that really know their stuff, and they said, you know what, that BGS grade, that CSG grade, it is the best looking one, even compared to those three PSA 10s, I would say exactly the same thing. We like I say, we have four very competent grading companies right now. It's really, honestly, it's a great time because that hasn't always been the case. CSG has really come up. SGC has. BGS, they're still kind of, I think, working out some kinks, but still a big name in the hobby. And then PSA is the leader in terms of how many cards are actually graded. So there you go. But a lot of opinions are formed out there when you're looking at social media. You see a lot of, it's not a PSA 10 or, PSA 9 or whatever. PSA 9 suck. Well, what does the PSA 9 look like? What does the card in that holder look like? Not all PSA 9s are created equal. BGS 9.5s. I know a lot of people that strictly target BGS 9.5s because they see value in it, because people are just like, I'm not buying BGS 9.5s. And it wasn't that long ago when BGS 9.5s were outselling PSA 10s. I've heard stories of people cracking PSA 10s to send into BGS. The whole idea that the grading landscape is settled and it can never change, as far as who's on top and all that stuff, I don't believe it. I don't buy into it. And it goes back to the card itself that's sitting in that slab. The comp, when you're looking at a comp on it, not all 9s are created equal, not all 8.7s. You really got to pay attention to the card itself. And when we look at it, it's kind of interesting because I think that each card is really its own market in that way. Each card is going to have its own comps and its own stuff with it. So what does the Mickey Mantle sale mean to the rest of the hobby? Not really a whole lot, in my opinion. It's really in a league of its own, if you will. Does it show optimism for the overall card space? Sure, you could glean that from it, glean it. You could take that away. Sure, I think that people are spending a lot of money on cardboard, on collectibles, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everything else goes up. I hear all the time the high tide raises all boats. Is that the saying, or whatever the saying is? I never believed that. I never believed that in collectibles. Not 2 years ago, I didn't believe that. I've been saying that I think that each card has their own market to it, and it all depends on shifting demand. Supply is still a question mark for everything. Even numbered cards, it's like, yes, that particular card is numbered, but now there's many, many numbered cards of that particular card. Is it purple? Is it blue? Is it green? Whatever. So everything has its own market. Grading is subjective there. And so that's why it's so important to really dig into that card, feel really good about what the card looks like. I have a viewer that shared with me a card. It was actually going to be the most expensive card that he ever bought. Michael, shout out. And he reached out to me. He was actually at the National. He was looking at it, and it was in a PSA 10 holder. I believe it was in an older holder. And when he looked at it, there was a corner that he didn't feel good about. He didn't feel good about it. And it was kind of the question of like, would that grade a PSA 10 again? And it doesn't matter if this is a PSA or any of these other grading companies, doesn't matter. But you can understand my point. So he ended up not pulling the trigger on the card because he looked at it online, looked great. When he held it in his hand and looked at it, there was that one corner that just stuck out and it just kind of bothered him. And it could have been one of those that, hey, it just slipped by that day to where like 9 times out of 10, that's a 9. But hey, got lucky, got a 10. And you see a lot of people, they're cracking 9s to try to get the 10. And why are they doing that? Because the difference in price between the 10 and the 9 is dramatic. And you do have a lot of hobby people that are just buying slabs. They're just buying grades without necessarily caring about what the actual card looks like. And I think that as the hobby evolves, as the hobby/market evolves, people are going to care more and more about what that actual card looks like sitting in the holder. So I'll wrap it up here, but let's see what happens with this Mantle. How high can this thing go? It is an exciting sale. It's something that everybody is watching. It's just very, very interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you a buy a slab guy, gal, or are you a buy a card slab guy, gal? Let me know. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.